For the second part of our seminar today, I want to just talk about what we can do. The first part we spoke about the challenges and the different dangers out there. But what can we do as a community? And what can we do as teachers and as parents? I just want our parents to know that parenting is leaving a legacy. That is what parenting is. We are leaving behind a legacy. And our children, they grow up and what they become is a legacy that we have. I've heard immigrant parents really, because they were said we were so busy. We were too busy doing these things and now we've lost the time. Because when it comes to parenting, you don't have the opportunity all the time. There are 4 stages of parenting. 1 to 5 is the discipline years. This is when our children are taught the disciplines, the basic foundations, principles. 5 to 12 is training years. And this is where the parent is like a coach. 12 to 18 is the counseling years. And this is when we, the parents and teachers, take the role of a counselor. And 18 plus is friendship years. Now, if you don't do it in the right way and if you try to do the discipline years from 12 to 18, can you imagine what will happen? If we just twist it around. If we have friendship years from 1 to 5, and that happens a lot because, children are very cute and, when they scream for the phone, it's very cute to see them screaming for the phone and then we give it. But sometimes we'll have to be a little bit intentional about the discipline because that's the first 5 years. And so this pattern for parenting is a very good guideline because 12 to 18, this adolescent stage that we talk about, again, there are lots of different studies. Different studies will give you different things. The different stages, we have early adolescence, middle and late. And basically what this is when a child is gradually becoming an adult. So what that means is, I talk to my child the same way. I tell her, as a teenager, there are some parts of you that is still kiddish. There are some parts that you're becoming adult. I can't treat you completely as an adult and I'm not going to treat you completely as a kid. So when you behave like a kid, then you'll have to take care of kid things. So we are encouraging you to behave like an adult. And so that transition phase is this extremely complicated time when children are realizing who they are, they're finding themselves. So that stage is very important. It's a beautiful phase when we can be the counselor and we're trying to identify. I remember telling my son about the skin color. I said, this is the skin color God has given us. We're proud about it. At no time should you ever feel inferior about it. That's just one example. I'm just saying one example. Now, who we are and our background, that strong identity. And so, the real problem, now we're not talking so much about the challenges, we're trying to find out what we can do as a community. Now one of the real challenges is this identity crisis that our young people have. Who you really are versus who you want others to think you are. Now with social media and followers and Facebook likes and Instagram likes, it's all about getting likes, it's all about having an impression for yourself. But I just identified 4 different I words. The first thing is this feeling of inadequacy. For a child or a youth to say, I'm not good enough. I wish I had those talents. How come I'm not like them? Now these are thoughts that go through, and again, if we understand this, then we can take the right steps to help them to understand who they are. This is all these things that I'm talking about right now is helping our child to have a strong identity. So when children have this inadequacy, they get involved in physical alteration. You can see that. They lead to depression. Sometimes they have this what we call dual personality, and that's they're one person at home and they're another person outside. That's a very complicated thing because at home I need to behave a certain way because this is what my church wants. This is what my family wants. They kind of learn this behavior where they do a certain thing at home. At church, I behave a certain way and everybody says, okay, this is a model child, that's wonderful. But then you'll have to be careful because then outside they're a totally different person. So these are just different things that children and young people do. Inadequacy is the first I word. The next I word is insignificance. So the question that children have, who knows me? Who understands and who cares? Really, who cares? And do children get that feeling? Well, we as parents, we are busy, I understand. I'm very sensitive to the fact that all of us are busy. This is not an easy world to be a parent and be an adult. We have our own challenges. But unless we are intentional, my wife and I, we started doing something called family night, family evenings. We're trying to make that work. Suddenly get so busy and but you just somehow make it work. Family evenings. You watch a movie together or do something together. Because if not, then what will happen is this insignificance will lead the children to try to do different things just for attention seeking. Then you get into behaviors just for attention seeking. You get into wrong relationships. Another thing about insignificance is goes to loneliness. And now you can tie into all the challenges I spoke about. You can tie into depression. You can tie into addiction. So if the loneliness is something that a child goes through, if they are lonely at school, lonely at home, lonely at church, then that's a real danger. So we as parents need to really look for that. The next one is insufficient. I don't fit in. That's a challenge that again depends on the different areas that you are. I want to hide. I'm different. And a lot of immigrant families go through that. But peer pressure, bullying and addictions. This is because of this insufficiency feeling, okay, I don't fit in. I'm different. Why am I like this? So this is the next I word. Again, all of you are teachers, you can take this and you can develop your own ways to talk to the children about it. And the final one is insecurity. Insecure. Am I safe? Am I right? What's my future? And this goes back to problems with anxiety, low confidence, and easily influenced. Now, all these I words can be taken care if we provide that strong community, both at home and in the church, so the community is strong. That means all these I words can be taken care if we pay attention. The parents and teachers together, that we develop that identity in the children. And so now I just want to give you just a personal story of what we have done. There's a place called Manipur. This is Northeast India. We were running an addiction recovery center there. Men were into heroin addiction and many of them were getting HIV. And so we were running a center there. And so we saw all these HIV orphans. And then we saw children of HIV. Their mothers had the picture that you can see is HIV widows and children. And so we saw these children, and then my wife and I, we really had a burden. And so we talked to our friends. As part of our organization, we bought some land and we built a school. And so we have 120 children there. It's called Life School. And these children come from different parts, mostly from the border of India and Burma. For these kids, when you talk about identity, what kind of identity can these children have? You're born with HIV, you're born in a very unfair and unjust world. And when you say the Bible says everyone is created in the image of God, we said every child is created in the image of God and created special. Now, what kind of speciality is there in these children? And so we developed a curriculum based on the word life, L-I-F-E. And we decided that this is a strong foundation. Now, you may have better curriculum. I'm just giving you ideas of what we have done so that you can implement similar things. We said L-I-F-E. These are the 4 foundations that every child should know. The first one, L is for love. You are loved by God. And that unconditional love. Our children should know that at the end of it, doesn't matter what happens, my parents, they love me. Even if the father is strict, yes, we may have disciplines, all those things are in place, that's fine. But the pillar is that, yes, they really love me. They truly love me. Now, that would need, goes back to spending time with the way that we speak and the things that we do. Sometimes we feel, sometimes parents feel like, can't the children just understand that I truly love them? I'm working hard and I'm providing food for them. Of course I love them. Yes, they know, but we have to sometimes take some effort. And so this love, first thing is God's love. God really loves. And then we want to teach our children to love God and love others. And this is, of course, the pattern. It's a biblical pattern that we have. First is we experience God's love. Then the pillar of love is that we love God and then we love others. So if we can train our children to receive love and be loving. And so that is the first pillar that we talk about, love. From the church perspective, we want our children to have a relationship with Jesus. Our children will never feel alone. If they have a strong relationship with God, they will never feel alone. Doesn't matter where they are, even during times of loneliness. We spoke about loneliness. If they know that they have a relationship, then that will really help. So the love is the first pillar. The second pillar is the identity part, and here is where the challenge is that your identity, your external identity is not what defines who you are. The identity is who God says you are. So the skin color or your social status or your education status or your family background, that changes from person to person. If our identity is based on these external things, then some people are born with a bad deal. And that's not fair. That's not biblical. Because our identity is in who God says I am. Because if you have an opinion-based identity, then that leads to low self-esteem. That's why we have problems, if you have social status as an identity, then obviously the children who come from families from lower social status will feel a lower identity. And so depression, isolation, all these problems are if you don't have the right identity. And so the identity in Christ, God has created me, God has a plan for my life. So teachers, this is what we teach to our children in our life school. Because these are kids, some kids are orphans. But we are telling them, God has created you for a purpose. There's a special, unique identity that God has in your life. And so one of the ways is declarations. And we want to be careful with that. Parents and teachers speaking. Words have an incredible power over children. Words are incredibly powerful. I'm in the counseling ministry and we are training addiction counselors around the world. Conversation. Only human beings have conversation. Conversation is a spiritual activity. Animals don't have conversation. They have some low levels of communication, but human beings, we can speak words. So when you speak declarations over our child, when we speak God's declarations over our child, it's incredibly powerful. When we tell our children, you are blessed, God has created you with a purpose. You are an overcomer. God loves you. So these declarations are very critical and important in creating a strong identity for our children. And identity in Christ builds confidence. Who I am, God has created me uniquely. The way I am will give you self-acceptance. The more a child is able to accept who he is, then that's fireproof. Remember, we are talking about fireproof. Of course, we want to try to keep our kids away from the icebergs and all the problems, but at the same time, we want to develop fireproof inside. And the next pillar that we talk about is faithfulness. This is a pillar. Our children have to learn to be faithful at heart. Faithfulness, this is character building. Honesty, loyalty, truthfulness, this helps in character building. This is a very strong pillar for our children, faithfulness. And we all of us have strong biblical foundations, and that's an excellent thing. It's a joy to speak to a church community. Faithfulness opens the opportunity for children to receive the promises of God and to build character from within. So that's the pillar of faithfulness. And the next one is the pillar of excellence. Now we want to be careful how we set this up. The school that we are running, by the time they came to our school, they were 10, 12 years old, never been to school. But what we are teaching them is, you do the best that you can. That's the criteria. Everybody cannot come first in class. But in whatever you do the best that you can. And that's another thing, that some of the pressure that, I don't know if that's much pressure here in the US as much as it is in India. A lot of the children who commit suicide in India is because of the pressure of not having a certain education, achievement, not getting the marks that the parents expect from them. So parents, we definitely don't want to put additional pressure on our kids. They already have enough pressure. Yes, we need to encourage them to do the best that they can. Some of them are more lazier than others. Some of them don't like studies. They just want to play around. Yes, we need to give the guidelines. We provide all of that. Yes. But there is a certain time then we decide, okay, we are not going to put extra pressure on them to perform more than they are able to. Because there's something called slingshot parenting. Slingshot, you know how a slingshot works when you pull it to one direction, pull it, and then suddenly you let go of it and it flies off to the other side. Their parenting was like a slingshot till they were in 12th grade. And when they finished, they just got released into college and they went way on the other side. So having this pressure at home and being very unreasonable can be negative, because when they get the freedom, they go completely on the other side. And so we'll have to keep that in mind as well. The pillar of excellence prepares children for a successful future and helps them in their life. Now, one of the verses that we use, and this is from the Bible, Psalms 139:14. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works, my soul knows it very well. And one of the examples that I give is this man called Nick, who was born without hands and feet. And he's a motivational speaker. And he has no hands and feet, and he's all over the world speaking, and this is what he says. Here he is. And he's talking to people. And he says, if a man without arms and legs is dreaming big, why can't we all? At a church of your size, you have a lot of people who have gone through the challenges. These are young men and women who have done incredibly well in life, and they understand the immigrant challenges. It's always good to invite some of them back to speak to our young people. I'm sure you're doing that. That motivates them. That motivates our children to not have to have negative feelings of their own identity. This is the identity crisis that we have to, as a community, work towards helping our children navigate. I was asked to, in the chat section, I was asked to quickly touch upon the LGBT challenges that are there. Now, that's a real challenge. As I told you earlier, when awareness of something goes down, when things are treated more casual, when things become more familiar, then people are more open to indulging in it. And so nowadays what's happening is it's so free and so common and so much spoken about that there is a thinking in the young people's minds that it is probably this is one of the options, the LGBT lifestyle, because of the familiarity that is coming out there. The second thing that contributes to this is also boy-girl relationships. And so sometimes if you have a young boy, who he was really attracted to girls, and he tried to get friendly and they shooed him away, they made fun of him, whatever happened, and he kind of felt safe with the boys. And he said, trying to get a girl, they're being very mean, he has some insecurity issues, and what happened soon? Well, he's in the lifestyle. There are studies that try to say that people are born this way. There are studies that say it's a learned behavior. But I tell you, it's a real challenge. And in our schools and in our colleges, it's becoming quite familiar. It's being widely accepted. And the church, sometimes churches are not able to take an official stand on this. I don't know the stand that different churches take on this. But it goes back to our parenting and our teachers to form a strong identity. If we have a value system, a strong value system that's based on spiritual principles, then that will help navigate. Now, the agenda that's going on right now is pretty scary. Increasingly, more and more people are drifting that way. And if as parents you see that, then you need to seek professional help. We do our part in the early years in helping them to train and get a clear, strong identity. We talk about biblical principles, man, woman. We speak about these things from a biblical standpoint. That's what we do in churches and Sunday school. So we are well more equipped to handle this. Our children are well more equipped to handle this. So this is just the full summary of our seminar for today. I want to, if you have any questions, I want you to either chat or we can open it up. I have a few more inputs from the youth, and maybe this will be useful to you. Some feedback from the youth to parents. Define clear boundaries when you want to do discipline. In case you want to know what youth want to tell you, here's what youth want to tell you. Make the rules and consequences clear. Don't change rules and say because I said so. Okay, so this is a key to discipline. This is for parents. This is the youth speaking to us now. Make clear boundaries. Make the rules and consequences clear. Don't keep changing it. And don't make some rules saying, because I said so, do it because I said so. Okay, that's one feedback from youth. Here's another one. Avoid impossible demands. Every parent wants their child to be a prodigy. Stop pushing us. Sometimes, we feel that the more we pound on something that it's going to get heard. No, the youth will just tune off. So that's another feedback that we have. Here's another one. My dad thinks I haven't changed since I was 11. So, we, especially through adolescence times, we kind of feel our kids, they behave like a kid, but they're in their teens. So like I said, it's a transition phase. And so we really need to work on accepting our child. Message to parents, here's one. Don't think you know everything about us. And this is a very important one. Mark Twain said, it's easier to fool people than to convince them they have been fooled. Parents are easy to fool. I know we don't like to accept that, but we are quite easy to fool. And so we don't want to react on that, but we want to be observant and we want to watch. Here's another one. Message to parents. Take an interest in our lives beyond grades. There is more to life than just academics. And that is, sports, music. I know we do that, but just a feedback from youth. It's not all about studies, about social relationships. If you treat us like kids, we will act like kids. There's another feedback from a youth. My mom won't even give me a chance. Discipline, values, and fear of parents to be instilled at a young age, not as a teenager. So that goes back to what I was speaking about earlier about the discipline years. Most of the discipline and the foundations have to be laid earlier on. And so 12 to 18, we don't want to get into too much discipline. Definitely physical discipline is something that shouldn't really be there. I know from our community, some of these things are tough. I'm trying to be sensitive, but we want to be really careful. Discipline has to be done at a much earlier age. The discipline that we do is we put in consequences, but that is with guidelines. This is another one. Don't embarrass me in front of my friends. Our friends matter a lot. Public image, especially before friends, means a lot to youth and teens. So parents, don't embarrass the kids in front of their friends. That will really be very negative to the relationship. And don't find fault with everything. Pick your battles carefully. And I know that's something that we all need to learn. There are some things that are extremely serious, some things that are not so serious. And so we want to pick our battles carefully. And these are just some of the things that we got back from the youth. Again, hopefully this has been a useful seminar. I've just left the last 10 minutes for us to have any questions. But before that, I'm just going to go a quick rundown on the different things so that we have an idea. As I said, it takes a whole church. So both parents and teachers. It's a joint effort. Parents have their own role to play. Teachers have an incredible good role to play, because sometimes parents, when they do the discipline, we find it difficult at the same time to do the teaching as well. And so the teachers come in and they can play an incredible role. They can also be a confident, you can be the voice of confidence to the children. So of the challenges that we spoke about, the first one is addiction. It's a real challenge. It's everywhere. And we want to be careful. Once exposed to any of these things, then it's quite difficult. We're talking about a lifetime of struggles. Marijuana is one of the most dangerous ones. Of course, alcohol is it's the most widely used. The young people their bodies just cannot handle these alcohol. The negative effects are far worse for younger children. We spoke about teen depression, which is a real thing. Depression is a real thing. Again, a caution. Please be careful before you go immediately to a psychiatrist. Please look through all the things. Let that be one of the final options. Don't be hasty in that, because some of the medications there have real effects on the human body. I've seen a lot of young teens who are very vibrant in their lives. They got into something and then they became very subdued. They became very quiet, very introverted. And so if teens are showing some things about depression, please look through that and see what are the causes. Try to find out the underlying issues. Again, counseling. I'm sure the church has youth counselors, teen counselors. Mentorship is a wonderful thing. The older teens can mentor the younger ones. The young adults can mentor the teens. That's a pattern that can go. Because many times our teens think that, oh, you parents, you came from India, you don't know. And they have that feeling. They may not receive from us as much. So if we get people who have grown up here, they may receive from them more. That's another thing. So that's as far as depression is concerned. Then we talk about bullying and the negative effects of bullying, and it's a real thing. And nowadays it's 24 hours of the day with the social media. And we spoke about internet and social media addictions, and we want to bring guidelines. One of the guidelines for social media is you have media free times. If you have 1 hour of media free time, if we say 6 to 7 is media free, let's do something else. Put your phones here. There are some churches who are doing that. Sometimes I go to speak. I've been invited to speak to the youth, and it's sometimes quite frustrating, because you're speaking to the youth and all of them are on their phones. So it gets very difficult. You speak to them, but they're on their phones. So I know some churches that they have the youth have a media drop-off box. Now, if you don't have that in the church, to suddenly start that is going to be quite a challenge. But, because media is a constant distraction. And even in Sunday school and youth meetings, if the kids are with the media on, half the things that we teach them is not going in. So that's a consideration. Many churches have media drop-off box, and that's something that you can do. But again, do it inclusive of the decision making of the young people. Again, you don't want them to say, oh, this church is getting pretty disciplined and it's getting difficult for us. So you do that accordingly. The other challenge is, of course, what we spoke about, pornography. That's a very secretive thing. I know in my ministry, addiction recovery, porn addiction is the most secretive and the most dangerous, because it can be hidden. And alcoholic and drugs, you cannot hide that so much, but pornography addiction is extremely dangerous. And let us continue to pray that their eyes will be protected, their heart will be protected. It's just one click away. That's the thing. I know some parents who have put in different blocks. You can have blocks in your filters for your iPhones. Of course, there are some inconveniences in that, but those are different things that you can implement. The next thing is, of course, peer pressure. We want to be considerate to our children. They have a lot of pressure from their peers in their schools and colleges, and we want to be compassionate about that. What youth need most from us: understanding and respect from adults, that's the parents and the teachers, more time and involvement. I mean, the greatest takeaway from today's seminar is time. Parents, time. You'll have to carve out that time. Just as we invest in different things, we make a lot of investments. Time is an investment that we want to make. And opportunities for our children, develop social competence, helping them to develop social competence, which I said again, our churches are excellent for that. More empathetic adult youth leaders, and today with this seminar, we've all understood that we want to help our children have a strong identity, and a strong identity is fireproof. The real fireproof comes from strong identity, complete acceptance of who we are. Every child to accept, this is who God has created me to be, and I am comfortable in my skin, I'm comfortable in who I am, and to help to find the meaning of life. So thank you very much. I want to just leave the last 5 minutes. Any questions, any suggestions?